Boeing stock has plunged from over $400 per share to under $90 per share. But is it too big to fail? This essentially means, is Boeing just too large of a company that the US government absolutely cannot let this fail? Because if they fail, then we have a domino effect of so many other suppliers failing as well. If you recall, I did make a video a little while ago on why I was buying Boeing stock and why I was bullish on the company. And at the time, the biggest issue really with the company was the 737 MAX grounding. And we were really just waiting for certification from the FAA so that these planes could fly once again. And things were starting to look good for Boeing after their 2019 struggles. We did see the FAA come out and say that we could see certification sooner than expected. So things were starting to look up for the company, and as investors, this was good news. Well then, as you know, we got a curveball thrown at us and the market has adjusted accordingly. And so many companies right now are affected by what's going on, including Boeing. Airlines are amongst the hardest hit industry amongst all of these issues right now, and as a result, Boeing gets hit pretty hard as well. And as a result, this puts Boeing in another tough situation. And this has resulted in the stock losing over 70% of its value in just over a month, which is an extreme move for a company that's this large. Boeing has gone from a market cap over $250 billion to now under $65 billion. And again, in just over 1 month. So naturally, fundamentally, a lot has changed with this business since I made that video. And I've been getting tons of questions on a regular basis from you guys asking me, what are my current thoughts on Boeing? And am I still holding my Boeing stock? And am I still buying more Boeing stock? But the real question that's concerning a lot of investors right now is, do I think that Boeing is going to survive this crisis? So I'm going to answer all these questions and much more in today's video, so make sure you stick around to the end. And all you have to do if you appreciate this is hit that like button down below because it helps promote this video and helps support the channel. So let's start off with first what's going on with the airline industry. So the airlines are actually facing some of the toughest times that they've ever faced in their history. And this makes sense because many countries are banning flights, closing borders, and just grounding planes because there aren't that many consumers that want to fly right now. Most businesses have suspended travel, and there's just no need for that many airplanes right now. And of course, these airplanes are not cheap to operate. It costs these companies a lot of money to fly them. So it has turned out to be better for them right now to just not fly these planes, just ground them until things start looking better once again. But because of that, there comes other problems like layoffs and cuts, or even complete halts in spending, and this of course affects Boeing directly. Now Boeing has a few segments to their business like aerospace and defense, but a lot of their revenue relies on airlines to purchase planes like the 737 or the 777 Dreamliner. But when airlines cut their spending, guess what? Boeing doesn't get these orders through, and as a result, their earnings are affected. That if Boeing cuts their production, then a lot of the suppliers are affected because they're not buying anything from them currently. And as a result, we get layoffs all the way down the chain. A lot of large companies supply Boeing as well, like Honeywell, for example, and they're seeing struggles because of the 737 MAX grounding and now because of the current crisis that we're in as well. So what I'm trying to get at is really that this whole situation that we're going through right now has resulted in a ton of uncertainty for Boeing stock and Boeing shareholders. The possibility of layoffs or collapse here in Boeing is pretty high right now because of all of this, and this has resulted in a lot of bailout talks making headlines recently. Boeing is essentially asking the government for $60 billion for a bailout to essentially save the whole aerospace industry because so much relies on the company to get through this. In an official statement, Boeing says the $60 billion would support the health of the broader aviation industry because much of any liquidity support that Boeing receives will be used for payments to suppliers to maintain the health of the supply chain. So essentially what they're trying to say here is that they want the government to step in with $60 billion to support Boeing, who will then in turn support their suppliers and hopefully avoid layoffs. Because of this, Boeing is being compared to AIG back in 2008, which was also in a tough situation of being too big to fail. And guess what happened then? The government had to step in and had to save them. Now, will Boeing go down the same path here as AIG? I will discuss my thoughts on that later on in this video. This past week, we actually got some really big news from Boeing directly that looks like they are starting to prepare for a possible bailout package here from the government. Now, it may not be called a bailout per se, but essentially that's kind of what it looks like it's going to be. So in an official statement on their website, they said that their CEO and board chairman will both forego their pay until the end of the year. They will suspend their dividend payments until further notice, and they will also be stopping any share repurchases of their stock until further notice. These are typically signs that the company is getting ready for some sort of government assistance, because typically when the government steps in, they have stipulations like you cannot pay out a dividend, you cannot purchase your shares back, and all these other kind of things until that supposed loan is eventually paid off. So as you can tell, there's so many changes that have happened to this industry and this company in the last month, and we need to spend some time now to really discuss what I plan to do, how I've been coping with my position, have I been adding, have I been selling, and I'm just going to discuss with you what my plan with Boeing is moving forward. So as you guys may know, I have two main accounts really for my investments. One is a regular investment account and one is a retirement investment account. I have made my retirement portfolio public in a series that I'm doing on the channel, and I'll be making an update video on that soon, but in there I own 22 shares of Boeing. The average cost basis is around $346 per share, and with the latest stock price, this means I'm down 72.5% on this investment. In dollar amounts, this translates to around $5,500 of paper loss, which is not a small amount by any means. In fact, in my last update video, Boeing made up nearly 20% of my overall portfolio in my retirement account. And if you guys have been following that series, you know that my focus in that portfolio is for dividend growth companies. So now the question, of course, is that since Boeing cut their dividend, they're no longer a dividend growth company, and my position is down over 70%, will I be selling? Absolutely not. My time horizon for this account specifically is 30 plus years, maybe even longer, maybe even forever. It's a retirement account, so I have no plans to use those funds anytime soon. The worst thing I could do right now is actually sell Boeing stock, accept $5,500 in losses, and then move on from that position, because in the long run, I still believe Boeing will come out of this strong. Boeing will be a large company once again. It may take them 5 or 10 years to get there, but like I said, I have time on my side with this portfolio. The possibility of a dividend cut has kind of been looming for a little while, and now it is confirmed, and it is disappointing to hold this stock in my portfolio without a dividend. However, I believe once Boeing gets back on their feet in the future and they start bringing in their massive cash flows that they did in the past, Boeing may actually start paying out that dividend once again at that point. I actually think this move that they made with cutting the dividend is actually the best move that the company can make to ensure that they survive and have a good cash balance moving forward. So as a shareholder, although I am disappointed that I'm not going to be getting any dividend payments from this company anytime soon, I am glad that they're finally making moves to ensure the survival of the company in these tough times. Now, like I said, my allocation to Boeing was pretty high here, especially before this huge dip that it's had. But that's because my portfolio is not fully matured yet. I have a lot of money coming into this portfolio over the next few months and years. So I expect that Boeing position to actually keep decreasing in time, because I do not plan to add any more into that position, but I will be building up other great dividend growth companies in the meantime. Maybe companies like McDonald's or Starbucks, which are down significantly but have a good history of paying out a dividend, are good candidates here for this portfolio. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, but it's almost certain as of right now that Boeing will not be getting any more capital, at least in this portfolio. Now, jumping over to my private portfolio, this is why I don't really discuss too much on the channel, but in here I actually have some Boeing stock as well. And although I have averaged down a couple of times, at this point, I am still waiting for a couple of fundamental things to be announced before I can actually go ahead and add more to this position. As I said before, it's pretty much inevitable that we're going to see some sort of bailout here for Boeing, but the question is, what are the terms going to look like? Will the government essentially just loan them $60 billion with a low interest or no interest and just expect them to pay it back after X years? Will they just dilute the shares, which would result in current shareholders having less value with current shares that they hold, which of course would drop the price of Boeing stock? Will they force the company to restructure, file for Chapter 11, and essentially bring the current value of the shares to $0 while they figure out how to go about this moving forward? These are all questions that are still up in the air, and I need clarification on this before I can add any more cash into my Boeing position. And I do realize once we see this news, whether it's positive or negative, the stock will react accordingly. So I'll miss that initial move, but I am willing to miss out on that possible gain, because if we do see the stock go lower, then I'll have an opportunity there to average down at even lower prices. Just remember, Boeing is an amazing company and a strong business, but they had poor management, which pretty much put emphasis on share buybacks, which is why they're put in such a tough position right now, because if they save that cash and just focus on just paying a dividend, they would have a lot more buffer right now and wouldn't be in as tough of a position. I think that the FAA approval, whenever that does come, will help the company tremendously with the 737 MAX. So that should be a good bright spot for the company when it does come out. But as of right now, the way that things are looking, a lot of Boeing's customers are grounding, doing layoffs. So we may not see that sort of realized revenue for a little while until the whole airline industry has a good chance to recover. The best case scenario that I see right now is that the government steps in, loans them $60 billion with an X% interest, and then Boeing can continue their production, can continue paying the suppliers, and we can avoid mass layoffs, and in a couple of months we get through this. This will of course be good for the government because it'll save an iconic company from going bust, and as a result save thousands of jobs from going bust as well. And just remember, the US government loves Boeing because they buy a lot of aerospace and defense equipment, planes, all that kind of stuff from Boeing. So it's in their best interest as well to make sure that this company gets through these tough times. And another crazy stat that I read was that Boeing actually accounts for around 0.5% of the overall US GDP. So this company is massive and critical to the growth and success of the US as a whole. So once again, it's in the best interest of the US government to make sure that Boeing is protected. So there's a lot of uncertainty here, but like I said, my retirement account is going to just stay put for now. My private portfolio, I do have Boeing in, and I'm waiting for these clarifications to see if I can add into Boeing. Just for full disclosure here, I have a cost basis of the low 200s in that private portfolio. And if you want to see other positions or more clarification on that, check out the VIP group in the description down below. But essentially, in a nutshell, Boeing makes up around 2% of that portfolio. So even if the stock is down 50% like it is in that portfolio, that means I've only lost around 1% of my overall portfolio. So in the grand scheme of things, guys, it's not that big of a deal. So what I'd ask is to save yourself some time. Don't post comments like, oh, you've lost so much money, oh, you bought at the top, oh, you did this, oh, you did that with Boeing. I've managed my position the best I can for what I knew at the time. What happened after that in the last few weeks was kind of unexpected and has affected pretty much every company out there. So it is unfortunate timing. But I do believe at the end of it, we do come out stronger. Boeing does come out of this, and shareholders will benefit from this over the long term. I'll be sure to create an update video when we do get some clarification on this. If that's something you guys want to see, let me know in the comment section down below. But either way, guys, I really appreciate you watching. Thank you so much. Don't forget to invest positively, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.